Okay, so those two pesukim, Zayin and Chet, are the answer to Vav. Okay, and the answer to Mizot Olamin Hamidbar. Why do we say it? Like you ask, why do we say it in Kriyat Shema Alamita? So one of the reasons, according to the Gaon Mivina, is to do your Heshbon HaNefesh, to see how did I implement these teachings in my day. Right? We have all this very systematic thought process and behavior that Shlomo HaMelech used in order to rise to a level of prophecy and retain that spiritual level and not lose it. And Shlomo HaMelech explains, Mizot Olamidbar, you want to know how you did it? That's the answer. So at night, we say our own Hine Mitato Shel Shlomo. Okay, did I use this thought process? Did I implement? Did I implement the systematic step by step? Right? It's a Heshbon HaNefesh. It's the accounting that we do of our day. That's according to the Gaon Mivina. We will see that according to the Malbim, we have another angle to the reason why we say Hine Mitato Shel Shlomo at night and what it refers to. So depending on each day, depending on what you've accomplished, depending on where you are, the pasuk will reflect something else, right? So we have the teachings of the pasuk, which is what the Gaon Mivina teaches us, and then we have the context of the pasuk and how we apply it, and that's depending on each person and the day that he went through and his own conscience, his own awareness, etc. And Stanley, why do we use that? Why do we say this pasuk in Kriyat Shema Alamita? So according to the Gaon Mivina, we know. Now we have to understand according to the Malbim what this pasuk, these pesukim come to teach us, and we will see the importance it has to the Kriyat Shema Alamita, which is completely a side note, but important.
And the idea behind the essence of the whole Shema Alamita is the Cheshbon HaNefesh, isn't it? Isn't for you to account for your day, to see where you went wrong, to see how you can correct it.
The Or HaChaim HaKadosh, I think we addressed it in the past, explains that at every night, when we go to Shammai, when we go to sleep, a spark of our neshama stays in Shammai, stays in the Olam HaEmet. And the neshama comes back with less spark. So, says the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, that's why, by the way, that's why we get older. And that's why we get closer to the last day. Is because you come down with a bank with a tank full of neshama. Wow. And every day when you go to sleep, that portion of neshama goes up, stays. So we need to do the tikkun of that spark of the neshama that never comes back. So what is the tikkun that we do? Says the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, is the Heshbon HaNefesh that we do. And when you do Heshbon HaNefesh, you do vidui, right? We say Ana Hashem, we do vidui, and we do Shema. Exactly the vidui and the Shema the person does before he leaves this world, or is supposed to do before he leaves the world. So we do it for that spark of neshama. So essentially, we do the tikkun, right? The full tikkun of that spark of the neshama. This is Kriyat Shema Alamita.
One question: when at night Shema Alamita, we say vidui, although we don't say vidui in tefillah in these days.
When we don't say vidui, we don't say vidui.
Okay.
When we don't say vidui, we don't say. For example, the same thing with Kriyat Shema Alamita, le Pesach, right? Le Pesach is Lel Shimurim Hu Hashem. So we say the short version of the Kriyat Shema. Of the Kriyat Shema. Now, some want to say that it's a vidui yahid, and So you do your own vidui, not the formal vidui, but
Yes.
you do your, the hishbon nefesh. When you think about it, right? When you summarize your day, you do your accounting of your day, you recognize what you've missed, what you did wrong, what you should have done better, what you did right. Essentially, you're doing teshuvah on that day. And that's the importance, says the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, of the Kriyat Shema Lamita. Now, from a teaching perspective of that pasuk of the Gaon Mivilna, it's phenomenal, right? Because we see, basically, you reflect on what? On your own potential. Because you're supposed to try to rise as high as possible. Shlomo HaMelech teaches me how to do so. And now I'm using the formula of the Gaon Mivilna to see, of Shlomo HaMelech, according to the Gaon Mivilna, to see what has been done and what has not been done. So I am comparing myself to my potential, to my true potential. By the way, which is one of the viduim we do on Yom Kippur. One of the tahanunim when we do on Yom Kippur is what we could have been and we weren't. We ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu for mechila for that, for the potential that we wasted. So, Hine mitato sheli Shlomo is exactly the formula that can bring us to our full potential that we didn't accomplish that day. So on this, we say Kriyat Shema, which is the Shema Israel that each neshama should say before it leaves this world. So we say Shema for the spark of that neshama that never comes back. We also do vidu to do the tikkun for whatever we did wrong on that day. And we also reflect on the potential we did not accomplish based on the formula of Shlomo HaMelech. So this is according to the Gaon Mivilna. Now
I miss you, Rob. Spectacular.
I agree.
Yeah.
Me too. Too long.
It's like every night you should make corrections.
That's right.
On your training. It's a training.
Yes.
Wow.
An adjustment. So now we're gonna learn these two pesukim according to the Malbim. Like I said, we touched on it very, very briefly. We said talk about it in 1 second at the end of 2 shiurim ago. I think Stanley, you weren't around in that shiur. We're gonna dive in from fresh. Says the Malbim the following. So, okay. We know the translation. Ine mitato sheli Shlomo, shishim giborim saviv lah, migiborei Israel, right? We know the meaning. Or we have to explain it again. We know it. Stanley? We're good?
Yep.
Very good. All right. Mitato sheli Shlomo, says the Malbim, is the body. The mitah is where a person rests, right? The bed is the furniture, right? That is made for what? For the body to rest, right? For the physical body. Hine mitato sheli Shlomo, the body of Shlomo HaMelech, or the body, right? That is for Shlomo, that is for, and who is Shlomo? Shlomo is the neshama, right? So it's the contrast, says the Malbim, between the mitato Shlomo, between the body of Shlomo, and Shlomo, which is the neshama of Shlomo, the spirituality of Shlomo. You want to know the answer to the question, Mizot, in the mitato Shlomo, shishim giborim saviv la. So the Malbim, and I will spare you with the count, goes through the 60 different organs that have a metaphysic influence on the nefesh of man. And he goes through all of them.
He goes through all of them.
Yes, yes. He
Wait,
goes through the. He goes.
There are
through,
the 60 different organs that have what? I'm
yes,
sorry.
it's broken into organs, muscles, and bones that has a metaphysic impact on the nefesh, on the spirit of man. And he takes the Ramah Evarim, he takes the 248 Evarim organ, and he goes through all of them and brings out the 60 that actually have an influence on the nefesh. Okay. And he says those 60, because they have an influence on the spirit of man, are the Shishim Giborim, are the 60 soldiers that do not allow the neshama to detach itself from the body. So so basically, says the Malbim, there is a constant conflict between the neshama of man and the body of man. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in his infinite wisdom, created an influence that retains the neshama inside the body across 60 different organs inside the body. So those 60 organs together do not allow the neshama to leave the body.
But Rab, it's not nice that there is a conflict between neshama and the guf. Like the neshama will like hate the.
But it does.
It does.
It does. It does.
Whoa.
The neshama hates the body, and the body hates the neshama. It cannot. There's no
A restriction. It's a restriction.
Yeah.
But to hate, it's.
No, hey, when you say repulse. It's like you take water and oil. They can never mix. They can never ever mix. It's the same thing. So it's a nest. It's a nest that they both coexist. So how does that work? It's the retaining, it's the work of those 60 organs that basically retain the neshama, retain it inside the body. So what do we see from this? That if those 60 do not work, the neshama leaves the body automatically. You understand? That's all it takes for the neshama to have a free way, to be free from the prison, boom, and leave. And he says, Kulam ahuze herev. They all have their sword, right? And that's how the nature, the body, do not allow mitzad ha'gvura shel mitzad ha'herev. Herev is the sword, right? So the sword is kivyachol. What is a sword made for? To kill, to slaughter, right? So, if you will, the body, or those 60 organs, part of the effort or the metaphysic impact on the nefesh has in it a paralyzing fear. That's what the cherev represents. Represents the sword. The sword represents death. So there is an instinctive fear of death. There is an instinctive need of survival that basically forces the neshama to stay within the body. So the body is in a constant fear of death. And that's what retains, that's part of what retains the neshama inside of the body and keeps the body alive.
What does the actual Hebrew word achuzeh mean?
Ohez, to hold on.
Hold on.
Yeah.
But and it's the same fear that everyone has that day to day.
Yes.
So this is the source.
Yes. It's the root of it. It's the root of it's the emotional translation of the influence of those organs that every individual feels to make sure he stays alive.
But Rob, so is it correct to argue that physically and mentally, it's the only way to be happy? It's through making tefillah, masim tovim, and things good for the neshama. Because if not, the neshama is suffering, so you suffer, and you don't know why.
Yes.
Because there is a conflict.
Yes.
So there's no other way.
No other way. That people fool themselves with physical pleasures, which is a pleasure to the body, but it has a beginning, it has an end. Like we learned in Kohelet, right? It's the worst.
Yeah, because the neshama will suffer more.
Exactly.
And it's physically. Wow.
Physical, yes. Physical.
Isn't there some kind of relation between physical desire and spiritual satisfaction?
No, yes, but one thing we'll get to that because we will see that. Let's not forget. The question is, how did Shlomo HaMelech was able to break out of this heaviness of the body? If you recall, like we learned in the Malbim a few shiurim ago, and how was he able to retain that level of spirituality and carry it with him? Right? Good. So here, what do we say? So there's an establishment. What did Shlomo HaMelech had to break? The influence of the Giborei Israel was a Heret, right? This is the most natural and fundamental restraint the neshama has from leaving the body. This, and it translates itself into what? Into a fear of death. This is the Heret. However, by the way, now, Stanley, you understand why this pasuk was so important when we want to keep someone alive.
It's keeping the physical and the soul together.
Right. That's right. When you say this pasuk, you're basically saying that you're tapping into the koach of the body that retains the neshama inside the body. You understand?
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's not stam a pasuk. Now also,
I didn't think it. I may not have known the answer, but I didn't think it was stam pasuk. Don't worry.
now the other thing, going back to what you addressed in the beginning of the shiur about saying in Emitato Shel Shlomo at night before we go to sleep. Now also we understand why we say it, because the neshama elevates itself, and we need to make sure that there is also something that's being retained right inside the body to keep the body alive.
Right.
This is in Emitato Shel Shlomo Shishim Giborim Saviv Giborei Israel. We recognize that there is a level of intimacy, whether you want or not, or control, or of governance of the body over the neshama or over the nefesh, that needs to stay in the body for the body to stay alive. This is why we taste 1/60th of death when we go to sleep, but there are still life that must be protected for the body to continue, right? to stay a vessel to receive the neshama the next morning. Be'ezrat Hashem. So this is 60 giborim saviv la mi giborei Israel. And we said, Kulam achozeh chereb. And how does that work? Shlomo tells us, because of this instinctive, subconscious fear of death that triggers in the body survival instinct to retain the neshama inside the body to stay alive. However, that's the first part, and that's what we're trying to overcome. Right? So what is the answer? Says the Malbim, Ish harbu al Yericho. However, though this sword, you know how I was able to elevate myself from the fear of the body and from the influence of the body on the neshama. The hereb was not in their hand. Al Yericho, it was kept on their thigh, on the yerech, right? So it was not out, it was on them. But, and how did that happen? So how was I able to overcome the fear of death that led to an instinctive reaction, reaction or an instinctive survival reaction, right? How did I do that? From the pachad of the lilot.
Rab, the body, through inciting instinctively avonot, wants like the neshama to live and like to kill the neshama?
No. He wants to choke it, not to kill it.
Choke him.
Because if he kills it, there's no more place for the body. So it wants to choke it. So here there's something phenomenal that's happening. Something phenomenal you're going to see. So the Malbim tells us what? He tells us that what do we have to overcome in order to be free spiritually from the fear of death that translates itself into an instinctive survival behavior. Good? And that's the hereb. That's the hereb. However, says Shlomo HaMelech, you know what I do with this hereb? I put it back in on its thigh, on the yerech. So that means there's still a hereb, but the hereb is not in the hand. The hereb is on the thigh.
Put it back in the holster.
On the holster, right? And how did I do that? Mipahad balelot, from the fear of night. What does that mean, the fear of night? Says the Malbim the following. He says there's only one fear that overcomes the fear that paralyzes you. Is the fear of the awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says, what is Mipachad Balelot, from the fear of night? He says the Nevi'im, when did they used to get their prophecy? At night. At night. The Rambam explains one of the phenomenon that happened during the prophecy would come is that the Navi would go into a shock, into a fear, a tremendous fear. In Ilchot Yisodei Torah, the Rambam goes through it. It's beautiful what he says. He says that the awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so great that the body starts shaking of fear. It's a phenomenon that happens physically. So says the Malbim the following. He says when a person works, how, i.e., refer to the Gaon Mivilna, okay, and is able to break, to open himself to the Ruhaniyut, right? The more he has Yirat Hashem, the more he has Yirat HaRomemut, the more he has fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of being in awe of Hashem, that fear, the pahad, that fear is so intense. That feeling, and it's not a fear of death. It's a fear of being in awe of Hashem, right? It's different. It's kavod. It's a fear that comes from respect, from love, from dedication. That fear is basically pushing back the fear of death. This is what takes the sword and puts it back in the thigh.
That's why Chachamim don't fear death.
Exactly. There's no more fear anymore. The fear that everybody face or have to deal with is not the fear.
It's like fear of eating. No one has fear.
Exactly.
One part of the procedure.
No exactly. There's no fear. The only fear you have, who do I fear? I fear Borei Olam. I fear the Averot. It's like Yaakov Avinu, who said, maybe I don't have, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took away my mitzvot. And now Hashem makes miracle to me, but he washes off the mitzvot. Yeah. Why do I have to be worried about? You have to be right. Lo ha'kav memit, ela het memit. As the Chachamim say, it's not the scorpion that kills. It's not the serpent that kills. It's the head. So the more you develop the awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the more that fear of Hashem envelops you, enters you, but with that, you completely neutralize the fear of death. Now, the purpose of life is no longer a survival instinct. It's the service to Hashem, the service to greatness. It changes completely the outlook of the purpose of life. You go from...
No, so is the fear of not doing the right thing.
Yes, for a greater good, for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, versus surviving and making sure you don't die.
Right, which goes back to the original overarching theme, which is we're always scared of just not reaching our full potential.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right. This is the lesson according to the Malbim. According to the Malbim, he says, you know how you olam min hamidbar, you elevate yourself, how you break the heaviness of the midbar by developing and building the awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that all takes care of everything else. All the fear, all the limitations, all the restrictions that you carry and you live by and forces to behave upon disappear. Now he says, why did Shlomo choose the Yerech? Why did Shlomo says, okay, al Yerecho mipachad balelot? He takes the sword, he put it back on the Yarech. He says, what is the Yarech? The Yarech is the thigh, right? Now, where do we hear about the thigh in the Torah?
Yaakov.
Oh, Yaakov Avinu. The Malach, right? Where does he touch Yaakov? In the Yarech.
Yeah.
In the Yarech. It's so what is really the Yarech? The sciatical nerve, right? But if you really learn according to Chachamim, what is it? What is it?
It's the place that they used to swear on.
Yes, it's where it's the nerve that generates the sperm. It's what brings life, right?
It was like a swear on your life.
That's right, exactly. Abraham Avinu with Eliezer, right? So
it's like the Milah.
Yes, it's not the Brit Milah, it's the nerve that generates the sperm in men.
Okay.
So comes Shlomo Melech and says, according to the Malbim, the Cherev needs to be somewhere. Where is it? Where does it stay? It stays by the source of life. The only fear is to lose your ability to bring life. That's all. That's where the yarech has to, that's where the cherev has to stay. And that's why does it stay there? Siman from Yaakov and the Malach, right? You see again the physical versus the spiritual. So the spiritual or the negativity, right, which is the Esav, where was it able to touch and stick to the Yarech Yaakov? That's it. Everything else can be spiritual. Here again, we find within Shlomo HaMelech, he carved out one area of the essence that always has to be physical, which is what? You need to make sure to stay bari, to stay alive. You need to make sure you can reproduce, you can engage, right? There is a production aspect, which is the healthiness of the body, which is to make sure that your vehicle, your vessel is strong. That's where the cherev should be. Everything else, no. This is the pahad balelo. This is the yirat shamayim. This is the awesomeness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
So I just want to understand something. Is the more I'm learning about the connection of the physical and the neshama, is it like almost like a mirror of each other directly, where if there's something going on physically, it's some kind of reflection on the neshama of something in the neshama?
Yes, that's for sure. That's
for sure.
For sure. But what Shlomo HaMelech is talking here is very, very pinpointed. He's basically saying the only instinctive fear you should have on a survival mode is to make sure to stay healthy, to physically stay healthy. You're not allowed to fear anything else. Everything else should be a fear of awesome nefesh of Hashem, of reaching your potential. Nothing else. Can you imagine? This is phenomenal. I'm free. I'm fully free. And the only fear I'm allowed to have for survival is the fear of not eating properly or harming my body or not being productive, physically speaking. Nothing else. Not even no emotional, no spiritual, no intellectual. There's no fear. There's a fear of instinct. There's no instinct of fear. Sorry. There's no room for that type of fear. There is fear. Yes, but the fear of awesomeness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and not reaching your potential.
So Rob, I know as an example, you help people with certain problems, right? As an example. And if you have somebody, as a random example, that has a fear of something, and it translates to a problem in their life, is the cure for basically anything like that deeper emunah in Hashem, and as you build that goes away?
100%. But not everybody is able to implement that. So you have to find a way to extract the fear, okay, and give the person the ability to start dealing with that fear from a point of strength within him. Ultimately, this is the answer. Yes. Also, sometimes you don't think, you go see a Gadol Ador, big Talmid Chacham. Rabbi, I have this problem. He's going to tell you, you know what? Okay, read Tehillim or learn Gemara or learn Hilchot Lashon Hara or Ani Yodea Ma, put Tefillin. What is that going to solve my problem? It's like the guy comes out. He's like, this guy he's a missionary. He just wants But the reality is that it's a way, through that mitzvah, there is a point of entrance, that mitzvah gorer mitzvah, that will lead to emunah and bitachon and strength, that will help you on your own overcome that problem.
It's like feeding the neshama.
That's right.
Give them to eat so it gets power.
Exactly.
It's mechanical.
Yeah. Put oil in the engine and it's going to drive
the engine. Simple.
That's it. Now, that's and now again we understand it even better why this pasuk fits perfectly Kriyat Shema Lamida.
I like that, putting oil on your neshama.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, this is what helped Shlomo HaMelech, okay, retain that spiritual level for so long. That's how he was able to hold on to that dvekut, that intimacy with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's Yaakov overcoming the thigh, right? And when you think about it, it's phenomenal because you live life with only one point of reference: is am I pleasing Hashem by reaching my potential or not? Nobody else matters. Meaning, when I say nobody, meaning there's nobody else can touch me. Nobody can steal a deal from me. Nobody can hurt me. Nobody can steal money from me. Nobody can set me back. Nothing, because nobody. There's zero influence at that point, except for one, where the guy that doesn't have that lives with the fear of death. What does that mean? Everybody becomes a threat. Everybody can steal from you. Everybody can hurt you. Everybody can lie to you. Everybody can manipulate you. There's no name. This is a life of jungle.
Rob, I have to tell you this very short story because it's so perfect for this. Years ago, my father was at a closing, okay, for a very big deal. I'll never forget it. It was Friday afternoon, and they were on a conference call, and they had a big deposit up, and they were going to lose the deposit, okay?
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. And my father says, "I'm sorry, everybody, I have to go for Shabbat." So somebody on the other line of the phone who was his partner. I said, "Are you crazy?" He goes, "You can't jump off. We're going to lose our deposit. Do you know what?" He goes, "Let me explain to you something. I'm afraid of you, but I'm a lot more afraid of God. Have a nice night." And he hung up the phone. But as long as I live, I never forgot that line. I says, if you have that mentality in everything, then nothing else would ever make you fearful.
Nothing, Tzadik. I want to tell you something. I was in Dubai. Okay, I was in Dubai, and someone set up a meeting with one of the royal families. Okay, and they say he's gonna come Friday at 8 and spend the evening with you. I said I cannot at 8. It is Shabbat. No. Anyways, he said, you don't understand. This guy is coming. He's going to hand in your hands, okay, a license for vaccines. It's yours. I said, vaccines is Shabbat. I cannot do it. If he wants, time to come Motzai Shabbat after X. I don't remember what it was. That's the only time you can meet him. So I said, I'm not going to meet him. The guy said, you're crazy. You're completely an Emirati. He's like, you don't understand. People would line up. I said, I'm sorry, I cannot do it. Maybe that's it. And I ended up not meeting him. And but the guy, and Baruch Hashem, every time I'm with this guy and we're with people, he said, I have to tell you how crazy this guy is. And he says the story. And I'm like, you know what? This is the biggest Kiddush Hashem. This is the biggest Kiddush Hashem. I said, you don't have royal, and do you have royalty? Royalty is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You can think you're royal, but there's royalty. No.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful, that story, that it doesn't have the, kind of hallmark ending where you ended up getting something better than it. It doesn't matter.
No.
It doesn't. No, but do you know what I mean? It's not important. Because when you have the fear of Hashem, it's irrelevant with the end result.
Exactly.
Very, very powerful.
So that's that. With that, okay, that's how we conclude the pasuk according to the Malbim. Now, the next two pesukim We're not going to learn it now because it's already late, but are lighter in terms of learning, but are basically reflecting the environment and the infrastructure a person needs to put around himself in order to protect that level. Now we spoke about how to break through and how to elevate, right? And be on a certain level. The next psukim will be, okay, and now you have to protect, how do we protect that? Be'ezrat Hashem.
This is like a solution for anxiety.
For?
Anxiety.
Stress.
Yes. Yeah, well, yeah, if people would listen, yes, absolutely.
I add.
Hi, guys.